You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. We cover news and events from this past week, talking Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Podbay, and more, as well as our partners at thechairshot.com. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. And let me bring in the rest of the team. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Miranda?
I am doing well. I hope the time change is treating you well. I don't have that.
Not at all. I've had to take a nap every day this week. I'm exhausted by the end of the workday.
Yes. What a way to be. I don't know, because my time never changes here in Arizona.
Yeah, they're saying it's not going to change here. They're trying to pass that through, and I'm really hopeful.
Yes. Well, now someone that I am in the same time zone is, well, who?
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 It's the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's who.
Yeah, no difference for me. I'm still exhausted all the time. So.
It do be that way.
Yes. I don't need a time zone change or anything. I'm just tired all the time. But you and I, Brendan, are back on the same time zone, which is helpful in planning stuff.
Yeah, it makes things a little easier for figuring out when we're actually starting.
Yes. But nonetheless, I hope everyone is doing well as we are recording this on St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day, I guess. And a very just exciting time in the world. This week we have so much to talk about. So many things happened this week, as we've kind of teased this ourselves, but we'll be sharing with you much more conversational, on this week's episode, and you will see why in just a little bit. We hope that you share with us in conversation on social media, or just reach out to us. We will be sharing our socials at the end of the show, but we'd love to hear about your thoughts in this week in the world of Lucha Libre, because boy, did we have some events happen. But, let's get to it. We are going to start this week's episode with, news of the week with Brendan.
All right. Well, speaking of big things happening, I don't know if this made it into last week's show or not. So if we talked about this last week and you're out there listening going, hey, what are you doing? It was when I came across it again in my feed, it was so big that I really wanted to add it back in. They finally announced that Wagner and Psycho Clown is going to be on the card for the World on Lucha. So that going into business for themselves angle that they did seems to have worked, although it's not in a Puestas match yet. So we may be building towards next year's World on Lucha, the way that Puestas matches go. Well, I mean, Conan and Vampiro and others we've talked to have all said that, these Apuestas matches used to take sometimes years to build. So I'm just wondering if maybe that's where they're going with this. That'd be nice.
I would love it if they turned that going into work for themselves, if they turned that into a
Oh,
huge
yeah.
payday.
I mean,
like, I
Right?
applaud them for that.
right? I
Like,
think that's it. I mean, it has to be, right? Because,
oh, no doubt.
you know, I mean, we know that they have
And
this
that's a main
history.
event on any show that it's on. I mean, that's
Yeah.
instantly your main event.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
imagining it probably will be the main event on the World on Lucha. And again, I think for GCW, though they have, you know, Lucha adjacent and luchadors on their show, they now have a whole card of luchadors. And so it's very, very fitting to have this match on there introduced to a much wider audience. And sometimes the way you need to do that, well, is to set the angle up. And how do you set it to an audience that isn't familiar with Lucha Libre, or doesn't watch it very much? You gotta do the angle right then and there.
Yeah.
So what I find super interesting about this, because of the nature of the gathering and WrestleCon and all of the things going on in Dallas that weekend, they are doing this this event. We don't know it's the main event. We're just pretty sure it's the main event. They're doing this.
I mean, like,
they're doing
who
this
else do
match,
you-
right? But they're doing this the same weekend that AAA's in the same town, and this would have been a AAA main event. This would have been a Triple Mania main event if they had them both at the same time. So again, because it's a rematch from a AAA match, they already had no place this match in AAA. Still mad about that to this day.
Yeah.
The wrong person won that match.
It blew my mind. I genuinely thought Wagner would never lose. I thought he'd be like Santo, and he would, you know, wear it till he was dead. And yeah, it blew my mind.
In fairness, without his mask, he actually went up in charisma.
He
Yeah,
really
that's
did.
true.
Like, he is a very good-looking man.
Exactly.
Well, and just
He
became
could do without it.
more expressive
Yeah.
and interesting in the ring. Like, he really works the crowd now. It's fantastic.
His facials are so on point. Every
Mhm.
show, I mean, every move, whether he doesn't so much, but when he does, his face, you see it.
Well, and then he's also just always teasing the crowd or his opponents. Yeah.
And-
Super
yeah.
excited for this match, guys, if you can't tell. That might be enough to get me to fly to Dallas on less of a budget than I originally planned. In other things, we've got, the Republic of Lucha is building up for their 1-year anniversary. I can't believe that store has already been open for a year. I call it a gym because they keep hosting wrestling events, but it's a store. Right? I mean, anyway.
Yeah. Went fast.
In the tease, they're saying this is going to be on Fight. As of right now, Lucha Blog and myself could not find any details. I'm going to just throw that out there because he was the one that set me on it, and I went looking too. But so I'm just excited. We're gonna have stuff. You can guarantee that you're gonna have the Lucha Bros and some stuff. They're probably gonna have some other big names in the American Lucha Libre scene. I'm not gonna. Well, I'll speculate a little. I mean, we'll probably see friends of theirs that show up all the time at Republic of Lucha shows. But
Well, they just posted, as of a few hours ago, one of the matches.
oh,
Yes.
what do you got for me?
Well, they announced Jacob Fatu versus Lince Dorado.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
What the what?
Yeah.
Yes, that is on Republic of Lucha's social media, their Instagram specifically. That was just posted a few hours ago. I believe right now it's the only match that they have announced for that show. But yes, you're going to have Jacob Fatu versus Lince Dorado.
That was while I was asleep.
Wow.
So yeah, they hadn't announced anything as of like last night when I was prepping my notes at work.
I need this match.
Right? It's like one of those matches you're like, damn.
Yeah, like you wouldn't have necessarily
down.
thought of it, but somebody
Yes.
did think of it, and now you're like, oh man,
Yeah.
I want that.
Yep,
Yeah.
I want that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no mention on this poster regarding, if it's being streamed other than just the live event itself. Yeah.
No,
so
They on the previews that I was looking at, they're teasing that it will be on Fight, but there are no details for that. So
that makes sense. But already that could be just worth the price of admission alone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I've got more Lince Dorado stuff though, cause, they also announced him versus Tarus at, Zicky Dice show on the 1st.
Wow.
Right?
That's, yeah. I like the idea. Lindsay's a legit badass. He has the jiu-jitsu thing. He's done the Gracie Challenge or championships or whatever it is for jiu-jitsu in Florida and won the gold medal. Like, he's for real. So to see him up against a bigger, beefier guy like Taurus, like, I want to see the martial arts. I love that for him. This is, yeah, he's made for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's gonna be good stuff. And then, I had Riot is shifting around their card. I didn't get the date, but, for this, but they had, Alex Zane in the tournament, next week. I just don't have the date. I'm assuming it's going to be on Saturday. Alex has had an eye injury recently. He was, he's been missing a few days, but was hoping that he'd be cleared for this and has not been. Oh, woe is us. He has been replaced by Jack Evans in the tournament.
Oh.
Nice.
All right. I see you.
I love you, Alex, but I feel like we traded up.
Yes.
You said it.
Alex and I hang out all the time when he comes to Seattle, so I'm sure he will not buy me Taco Bell next time. It's fine. But I do get well as well, Alex, if you're listening. I know you're probably too busy to listen to our show, but hey, Jack Evans in the tournament, a nice Riot Lucha tournament. So, that's, the first time in a while I've seen Jack Evans doing anything. So it'll be interesting to finally see him back out and about again after, fighting the rebellious fight down in Mexico there.
Yeah. He hasn't done much in AEW as of late. At one point, he and Angelico kind of inferred they were going to release some information on their status and their future, and then they didn't. And so I don't know if they kept quiet in hopes of getting a renewal like Brian Cage, or if they're kind of left adrift like Joey Janela and Marco Stunt, where they don't know and nobody's got in touch, so they just assume they're being dropped.
Well, Joey knows. I mean,
yeah, well, he knows now. Yeah.
That was the thing, that was the thing about that. I was going to bring that up, is that they are both in that same class of first year signees where, many of them have slowly dropped off TV, but like to the point, for those of you who aren't following the story, Joey Janela knows he's leaving because he doesn't like the way he's being treated. So whether they offer him or not, he's out the door. And according to the rumors, wasn't going to be offered anyway. So maybe he's, for the best on that. But however, I do think that, there's a lot they could do with, TH2 now that the tag team division is kind of exploding and you have ROH to fill as well. So
that's my thoughts. And Jack Evans was kind of, he had like a weird white guy breakdancer who wears a do-rag gimmick, but he was amazing in early Ring of Honor. Like, he was an early Ring of Honor guy. And to have him as like a trainer, a coach, a producer for a lot of these young guys coming through, he knows exactly how much you can get away with in the ring and how much you can't. Like, he is perfect for that role in Ring of Honor. So I hope we see him utilized in that way. He
legitimately learned the hard way. And
exactly.
That was not a gimmick. He lived that. Like, he's from the neighborhood in Tacoma where they all dress like that. He would, you can talk to Farmer or other promoters from the area. He would show up to shows dressed like that, and that was just his thing. And I still love this story that I got at Expo Lucha. We're going to be talking way more about Expo Lucha coming up, so I'm just throwing this out there now. I mentioned where I was from because we grew up not too far from each other. And the first thing out of his mouth was like that he did this sick dive off of the top of the dome in the city in my high school. Like he's like, I did, and nobody has it on camera. So, but that's what he's thinking about is all the crazy stunts that he does. Every time you mention a place, he's like, yeah, I jumped off something there. Like, so.
So cool.
Just so you know, that's Jack Evans is usually pretty readily available at the video game corner at Expo Lucha. So, you know, you can probably find him up there beating somebody at Mortal Kombat. Anyway, that's my news of the week. I'm gonna do one quick thing. We did have a Defy that's last week. I talked to the promoters, and they are actually also teasing that they're going to have things, but they mentioned specifically that they're working with Mass Republic on the Visas deal. So we might be seeing a lot more big name lucha talent at Defy in the near future. However, we did have a PCW women's title featuring Viva Van, who we talk about frequently on this show and has been up and down the West Coast defending that title. She went in there against Dominik De La Rouge, who is now being listed as being from Florida, which I think is to try and make her sound like a big WWE person. But it was a great match. Back and forth, a lot of interesting spots. They brawled on the stage at one point, which was probably my favorite part because everybody is super terrified underneath them every time somebody brawls on the stage at Washington Hall. And it came out with Dominik De La Rouge getting a little bit of an underhanded win, but she did win. I'm sure she will not be happy that I'm implying there was any unfairness at all. So look out on social media. If she hears this, she's gonna let me know about it. So I'm very interested in seeing the rematch. Maybe we'll see that at the upcoming PCW event that will be happening, or maybe we'll see it at another Defy, or the belt has been defended, like I said, up and down the West Coast. So keep your ears open. That we will probably see that rematch in a couple of times. But that's my This Week in News in the Indie Roundup. We will move on to a few more. We got a lot of fun stuff in the rest of this, so it's just your taste.
Brendan. We also will be sharing our socials at the end of the episode, so that way you can reach out to us if you have any news to share for the Indie Roundup. If you are an independent wrestling promotion, wrestler, fan, and you have news to share with us that may be featured on a future edition of the Indie Roundup. Up next, though, we're going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, who lets us know what's happening with this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mass, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
And we are back to cover the first of many big news stories this week. So let's start it off with Dusty, who gives us this week in AAA.
Yeah, AAA, as we mentioned last week, they had the Show Center Tournament last Saturday, March the 12th, debut show of the tournament. Let me run down the winners and the losers for you. First up, we had Reina Dorada defeating Marvia in a Show Center Tournament match. Second, we had a match that was originally announced as a trios match featuring Baby Extreme, Dolce Canella, and Commander versus Dinamico, Emperador Azteca, Mamba, but what we got was a tag match that saw Dinamico and Emperador Azteca defeating Baby Extreme and Dolce Canella. So, not quite what we expected. Yeah, great match.
Still a great match.
Oh my gosh, so good.
This is the first chance for a lot of people to see that. So I'm gonna just throw it out there. If you guys watch these people for the first time, tell us who you liked, because I've been watching them in Chaos for the last 2 years, and I am excited to see them break out.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dusty, keep going.
No, it was a fantastic match. We'll get to a description, but the whole card was great. Next up, we had Taurus defeating Io del LA Park in the Show Center Tournament match, followed by Chick Tormenta defeating Estrellita in a Show Center Tournament match. It was Estrellita's first official match in AAA in 12 years, and she lost. So, I mean, different than how you'd see things done in the States for sure, but interesting nonetheless. Next up, we had a trios match. Nuevo Generacion Dinamita, Cuatrero, Forastero, and Sansón defeated Los Jinetes del Are, the team of Laredo Kid, Mystices Jr., and Octagon Jr. Next up, we had a trios match. Mr. Iguana, Nino Hamburguesa, and replacing Pimpinella Escarlata, we had Mamba added to the trio, who was supposed to be in the earlier match that became a tag team match, and they defeated Abismo Negro Jr., Latigo, and Toxin. And then finally, we had the main event, where Io del Vikingo defeated Flamita. And as I mentioned, this was an incredible show. It should not be missed, genuinely. It didn't seem like a big deal ahead of time, but it turned out to be one of the better lucha cards I've seen in a while. The main event was phenomenal. So good. Vikingo is literally the best wrestler in the world right now. Period. Hands down. The best.
Oh man, there's a lot of Kenny Omega marks looking for you right now.
But even Kenny would probably say, "Where's Kenny?" And Kenny would probably also back this one up too.
I think he would. Vikingo's out there working with a knee ligament injury. You literally can't tell. He's so smooth. He's so effortless. He's just flawless in the ring. He's the future, not just of lucha, but wrestling. He's too good to be confined to Mexico. It's only a matter of time before we see him on the international stage. I really think he's the next big guy to break out. I don't want to say the next Rey Mysterio because Vikingo is doing his own thing, but he is easily the next big luchador to break out. He does things that people haven't seen. He does it in a way that looks better than anybody you have ever seen do it. He's just the guy. Like, when you see this match, you'll know what I mean. He is the guy. He is not booked for AAA's show at WrestleCon weekend, WrestleMania weekend. Disappointing. I think that could have been a big benefit to him, but I don't necessarily know the visa issues and everything involved, so.
I would have to say that's the most likely reason, because I don't see any reason why AAA or any of the other people doing lucha shows that weekend wouldn't want him on that card. Right.
He's instant main event. We talked about that earlier, but that's the thing with, you get Psycho Clown versus Dr. Wagner. That's a main event caliber. But already, Io del Vikingo, especially on a lucha-oriented show of any kind, he's main event. And that's a huge testament to who he is. If he had made it to WrestleCon weekend this year, I don't know that he would have stayed with AAA terribly long. I think he's eventually AEW bound. I really do. I think they're going to make the strongest offer to him. I think he has the best chances there. You have Penta, Phoenix, Thunder Rosa. You have a lot of people that speak Spanish who are not just fluent in Spanish, but that's their main language, the foundational understanding of English. It would help him assimilate into the Andrade as well. I mean, they could all kind of.
Well,
it just offers more than WWE does, in my opinion.
And guys like Andrade and Penta can really help him transition from lucha to the American styles as well.
Exactly,
so,
and make him look great doing it.
Yeah.
I think that, for an American company, I think we see Vikingo in AEW.
Well, also, I mean, the other intangible we've got is all of the EVPs like him, too. Like, Kenny wanted to wrestle him, and the Bucks both are very high on him, so, like, there's a lot of pull to get him to AEW, whereas there's really only the brand recognition of the WWE to pull him that way. And they've got less of a reputation for being good to luchadors these days, so that may not be enough for them to pull a talent like Vikingo.
Well, and it's easy to remember, especially for people that loved Mystico, and he's the right age. Mystico was like the biggest deal, not just in Mexico, but the world. Like, he was literally the biggest draw in the world at one time. And WWE turned him into Sin Cara, and then the whole thing just went to shit instantly. And so I feel like a lot of luchadors have to be cognizant of that when they're thinking about WWE, because a lot of these guys grew up on Mystico. So they know what happened.
They follow, but I mean, look, so we have to be fair on this. There was a lot of things that Mystico and the WWE could not control. Frequent injuries. I mean, they did a lot to work with that. But like, they definitely were high on him and were trying to give him a good angle at the beginning, and then it kind of deteriorated as they both got frustrated with the frequent injuries and his inability to work the American style as fluidly as they wanted. Right. That led to the whole Azul and Negro angle, because the other Mystico spoke much better English and had worked the American style in NXT for a long time.
Yeah, formerly Hunico.
Yes.
Also, don't want to forget AAA thing. We got to mention this. The March the 31st show, Dallas WrestleCon, we hinted to this, featuring Laredo Kid versus Flamita versus Bandito in a 3-way Cruiserweight Championship match, Laredo Kid's 12th defense, and a main event between Psycho Clown and Taurus. And that can be pre-purchased on Fight. It's $15, saves you about $4 over all the other AAA shows they've had this year. And it may be a sign of a slightly lower pricing going forward. Nobody's really sure why the price is lower right now. And if it draws a heightened audience, I would assume that they would see the $15 price point as being less of a barrier to people buying in than the $19 price point for $15 just sounds better to me for whatever reason. Like $15, that's nothing. But $19, I'm like, $19.
That's a full pay-per-view essentially on Fight by their so I have to give credit on this. Cubs kind of broke the math down on it. He predicted how much it would cost at the $20 range, and it looked crazy based on the schedule they would have. Like, I don't necessarily see myself spending that much money. I see myself spending that much. I don't see myself spending that much money 2 years ago before I was really into getting every single Lucha pay-per-view ever because,
absolutely. Yeah. If it wasn't for the show, I may not have dropped $19 for some of the pay-per-views. Like,
but, and then on the business side of things, they might have had a decrease in buys for this last tournament because it wasn't as big a profile, thing as Triple Mania. And maybe they're like, okay, let's drop the price point and see if we can get the viewers back up and get more eyes on it. Cause you will make more dollars by dropping the price by $4 and getting 100 to 500 more people watching it. So
it's true. We have, a lot to talk about next week. We'll have more the week after. A lot coming up. We've got Sammy and Tay Conti rather, and the going down Mexico mixed tags. Looks like it's leading to a Triple Mania match. A lot of good stuff going on. Also, I want to mention, for all this news and more, check in next week. Of course, same Lucha time, same Lucha channel as always. But you can also check out luchacentral.com, where this week Eric Mutter, he has a fantastic review of Show Center. He did a really nice, detailed review, and that's at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Thank you for that, Dusty. Now, lead us into this week in AEW where we had a finally moment. Finally!
Yeah. Yeah, by now you've heard. Yeah.
Probably a week too late, but just a teaser.
In my opinion.
I'm sure
I have a lot to say about that.
Yes. Go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Yes, but by now you've heard the big news, I'm sure. Thunder Rosa defeated Britt Baker, and in front of what was truly the most incredible live wrestling crowd we've seen since before the pandemic. She had an incredible entrance. They had an all-women's mariachi group performing. When she came out, the crowd went insane for Thunder Rosa. Hometown hero, San Antonio. Britt Baker wore her Scott Hall tribute gear, with the blood harkened back to his Outsiders gear, tribute to his recent passing. Great match. The crowd was beyond hot. They pulled out all the stops. We had tacks. We had chairs. We had wanton violence throughout. However, despite this amazing match, despite all the violence that once seemed innovative, despite all the things that Thunder Rosa did, like, she genuinely deserves her spot as AEW World Champion. It feels a little flat after she didn't win at the pay-per-view. That loss left all of us deflated, and it took something from this win. It really did. Like,
yeah.
It comes at the end of the story. All this time we knew Rosa was going to win. We knew Rosa was going to beat Britt Baker. And when she didn't, it kind of sapped most of my enthusiasm. I don't know how to explain it. What did you feel?
Well, so I felt like the problem here was that they wanted to pop that San Antonio crowd instead of their national crowd on the pay-per-view, which is a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
You could have still had Rosa come out as a returning champion, could have had her start off the show to heat up the crowd, and then had her do a match. They could have had an impromptu, rematch or non-title match or anything to get that crowd, that San Antonio crowd heated like that, but they didn't need to drop the rest of us, cause you're right, the rest of us around the country were like, this is the pay-per-view. This is when it should happen. Like, we
spent money to see.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a significant factor in pay-per-views. If you feel like you spent money to see something you really wanted to happen, and it doesn't happen, you feel not just let down, but almost taken in a way that, and the Dynamite crowd, the gate payoff couldn't have been as high. It just, the decision making is baffling to me. The match I thought felt a little rushed at the end. The Britt striking Rosa with the chair shot, some of the tack shots, I felt like they were really rushed. But Rosa was able to get Britt the Thunder Driver. She drove her into the tacks to secure the championship. And yeah, I mean, it should have been the biggest moment of not Britt Baker, but of Thunder Rosa's career. Like, this should have been the biggest deal. This is her biggest moment. This is the biggest moment in her career. She's AEW World Women's Champion. But it just feels hollow compared to how it should feel. And I don't understand the pop on the San Antonio crowd unless it was just to defy our expectations and make us think, well, anything could happen. Maybe she doesn't win. But at that point, I was over Britt Baker as champion too. It wasn't even like, boo, you're a bad guy. It was like, change the channel.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you even go back to their match at Revolution, like, that match in and of itself wasn't the greatest. You know, I kind of put this match over, and I kind of get the fact that you needed that match, but not really needed that match, but I'm playing devil's advocate. You needed the interference from Jamie Hayter and Reba to then create the stipulation for the cage match to build it. I agree. I think a lot of people do feel that it should have happened at Revolution, especially they introduced a new belt, for Britt Baker to hold it for a week, why not introduce the belt either right now for that match too? So there was a lot of inconsistencies with booking, and granted, I think the crowd and the essence of having the event happen in San Antonio was important. But I also do agree that they could have easily still had the same reaction with, Thunder Rosa winning the belt, somewhere else at another night. But, I still feel like it was a great moment though.
It still was. It still really was. And those that have been waiting for it are really excited. I do want to go with you just because you just made me think of it. They could have, what I was talking about there, they could have given her the new belt in San Antonio. That would have been the moment. And then you could have that spin into that on the spot rematch angle. The crowd would have been all over it. But, you're absolutely right. I need to be very clear. I still marked hard for the fact that Thunder Rosa got the title at last. I still am very proud of that accomplishment. The internet was filled with a lot of talk about how great those two are, and they were super excited to see Rosa finally get the win. Like, they did pay off the long-term investment. So,
yeah, and she deserved it. I mean, I think that she's in the top 2 or 3, if not the best women's wrestler in the world. It just depends on your taste in wrestling, honestly. But as far as what she does, there's nobody better. She has excelled in what she does. She has excelled in self-promotion. The way she interacts with fans on social media, she has got that figured out perfectly. She really has the whole package, and it felt like her time as champion. But it also felt like to me that the match that they were trying to kind of capture the magic they had last year at St. Patrick's Day Slam, and it just wasn't there for me this year. There's been a few more of the more bloody, violent matches like that in AEW. I feel that kind of lessened the impact of the main event, the violence of it. Not that it wasn't impressive, not that it wasn't, stunning, but we've seen it before. It was nothing that they haven't done before. And somehow the whole thing, it just adds up. Like you say, I hope they have a very strong plan for Thunder Rosa to follow this up. Like, that's what they really need for her at this point. And the other thing, I mentioned this before, the entire time, that Britt Baker was champion. It felt like we were just waiting for Thunder Rosa to dethrone her. But the interesting thing with Thunder Rosa is there's really nobody to set that up. Her future is wide open. She doesn't have any challenges. So there's a lot with future booking there, I think, that could be very exciting. A lot of good stuff going on. I'm really looking forward to it. Like Brendan said, she deserved this. This was her moment. We'd waited so long, waited a full year to see her be champion. And to see that payoff really was emotionally rewarding. And arguably a bigger audience on Dynamite than on pay-per-view, but the impact of the match feels lessened. And as you mentioned, the belt, the prestige of all that, the whole thing made it feel like it was custom made for Rosa, and then it didn't happen.
I do have to clarify, I was just echoing what Miranda had already said, so Miranda should get credit for saying it was her moment because she's the one that brought it up.
Well, yeah, and again, I understand always. I understand some of the decisions that they made leading to making the decision to have her win in San Antonio, but I also understand the camp that says she should have just won at Revolution, or why did you do something like introduce the new belt at Revolution if Britt Baker was only going to have it for a week? And also at this point, this is the third iteration of this belt in just 2 years for the company. So that's also kind of a very interesting aspect of it too. But, I do feel like and also at that point though, by not winning at Revolution, we pretty much knew she was going to win at on Dynamite. And I guess same thing at Revolution. We all thought it was going to be her moment. But I think either way, we can talk about that for hours on end. But I think, as you guys have both echoed, the thing is she's here. And the next thing is, what is next for her? I think that's going to be the big thing. They really captured lightning in a bottle with Britt and Thunder Rosa. I think it's going to be a challenge to kind of do that again. I feel like this was the feud that has defined the women's division in AEW, and which they really needed to do. So, now that they've done that, what is next for them? Because they have a very talented women's roster, but also from what we can tell, they've really struggled in booking storylines for them. And Britt did such a great job as a heel, heel face, but a heel champion. Now how do you really book a face champion, at least for now?
Face.
Yeah.
True face champion, yeah.
Who knows, Thunder Rosa will turn. I go back to something I still want to see, which I think could be next, is a Ruby Soho Thunder Rosa feud. But you both are faces there, so one is going to have to turn. I kind of think it would be Thunder Rosa.
AEW's not shy about having face versus face matchups in particular. I'll point you to the main event of Rampage the last couple of weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish they would do more with the heel face dynamic, but they seem to be more of the camp that is, I don't want to say dead, but not fresh.
Yeah.
So they tend to go with face in particular.
A lot of times it's ranking related too. Like the wins and losses really do matter in AEW. When your ranking can put you up against anybody, it gives it that legitimate sports feel in a way where anybody could wrestle anybody.
If they say that, however, I also will point out we had a world title match with a guy with two faces for no reason whatsoever. Like, it was not about rankings. That's for sure.
True. Yeah. A lot of interesting stuff in AEW now.
and I don't want to. So we often come off because with the interesting things are the things that we think that might have been different or better because we don't necessarily talk as much about it. But they are doing a great job of keeping us engaged by not doing traditional wrestling. So
absolutely, it's still my favorite wrestling program, my favorite show every week. Is AEW Dynamite. So, I mean, I'm a huge fan. I criticize them out of love.
Yeah, no, I think it's important, and also kind of equity too. You know, we'll have some interesting things to say throughout the rest of the show, but again, you know, it's important. At least these are our opinions, our perspective, you know, so, you know, you could take them as you will, but I do think it's important. Again, the one of their biggest challenges has been, you know, the women's division, and Thunder Rosa, they really, again, had lightning in a bottle with her. She truly was the beginning of this forbidden door. She has gone everywhere, and AEW has taken the time to invest in her as one of their major stars. But it's all the steps that you take in order to get there that help showcase that this is a big star and what you want from them, you know. And again, too, if AEW is more easily swayed by crowd reactions than logic in some ways, is that a bigger issue, you know, to other stories or how they'll continue to book, when maybe something that looks like a logical step or just a good step to take gets clouded by, oh, but this reaction's going to look, or this is going to look so cool on TV, you know, trying to understand the rhyme and the reason of it all.
Yeah, it's AEW, you hit the nail on the head there. There's so much where you just don't understand why. The whole thing. We'll try to make sense of it more next week, as we do every week. But
it's worse sometimes when we do understand the why. So.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, I understand some of the choices they've made, but man, I really wish they hadn't made those choices, and I'm not going to go drag us into that conversation right now. But
right, but yeah, no,
you can listen to past
totally.
episodes and figure it out. There it is. Just go back and listen to past episodes. I want to hear your opinions on what you think I was referencing. Let me know.
Well, thank you, Dusty, for taking us on this week's AAA news and, of course, AEW. Up next, we're going to be talking about this week in Major League Wrestling. Up first on this week's episode of MLW Fusion, we did have 2 matches. The first one on the card, and I'm sure we'll get to a little bit later on. And if we don't, well, I'm sure we'll still have to get to it later on. Miranda Gordy versus Roxy. In one of her final independent wrestling appearances, this was for Major League Wrestling. Miranda Gordy got the win on this match. And then your main event, TJP versus Buddy Matthews. And they quoted him of being AEW Buddy Matthews. This took a good chunk of the show. And in this match, TJP won. So check out this week's MLW Fusion if you would like. Of course, there was some tie-in with the Azteca Underground storyline. Cesar Duran still has it in for Alex Hammerstone. He's still in his feud with Richard Holiday, appearance and promos by others. So a really great episode overall. Again, it's every week on YouTube for free, 1 hour. It's so digestible, so easy to watch, so entertaining. Highly recommended. I want to jump though into some of the match announcements for Azteca Underground's Dallas show. This, to me, was the big news of the week. So I apologize if I just glanced over Fusion, but, you know, I definitely want to discuss some of these matches. First off, it was announced for the first time ever, we have Matt Cross versus Octagon Jr. That's going to be really good.
Yeah.
No way it can't be, yeah.
Yes, it's gonna be. That's gonna be a technical masterpiece there. We also will have a trios tag match: the team of Aerostar, Microman, and El Dragon versus the team of Aries, Mini Abismo Jr., and a luchador sorpresa, mystery luchador there. And we know there's literally going to be 90% of the lucha community in Dallas that weekend, so it literally could be anybody.
With only an outside chance of it being Vikingo.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be the hugest get in WrestleCon.
Yes. We also did get a women's match announced. Cheek Tormenta will be making her MLW debut versus Hala Dead.
Oh, and that's such a good matchup for her too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love it.
And we just got notification just within the past 24 hours that we are going to have for the first time ever a Mexican strap match. Gino Medina will be facing Aramis. So, this is, in association with the attack that Gino Medina, put on Aramis just a few weeks ago, being praised by Cesar Duran, giving a bonus for making Aramis bleed. And so this is, I believe, Cesar Duran's, sense of justice for the two to give them a fair opportunity to take their issues to the ring. I'm going to be so interested in seeing what this match looks like because you have, go ahead.
We do have the description of it too in the press release they gave.
Yes.
So we do have some clues what it looks like.
Yes.
I thought you were maybe going to describe that.
Well, I say go ahead with it.
Yeah, it's basically it's a lumberjack match. So they're going to have the ring surrounded by other luchadors, and they're all going to be armed with a leather strap. So when somebody rolls out of the ring, they're just going to get the tar whipped out of them until they get back in the ring, or they run completely out of the arena, whichever comes first. I feel like this is meant to keep Gino Medina from doing Rudo tactics, but it's really going to hinder a high flyer like Aramis as well, because he could wind up on the outside. It'll be very interesting. I am super excited to see that match now. I think Gino Medina is another rising star. We talked with him already, and we were talking about but he's just, since then, he's just really gotten the rocket strapped to his back, so.
Yeah, and I could see, and you're absolutely right about Aramis being more of the high flyer who tends to get outside of the ring, be at a disadvantage. And that's kind of almost the evil genius of Cesar Duran's mindset. It sounds like this is intentional, that someone like Aramis would be at a disadvantage. While also making it feel very fair, there's no advantage here for either men. Except, anytime you get out of the ring, you get beat with a strap, like that.
You might.
By the way,
it is, there are people out there that might not do it for some people like that, I don't know. Neither one of those guys has a lot of friends in Lucha or Azteca Underground. So
yeah. But this Azteca Underground card is just being built up to be so fantastic. Like, this is probably going to be their biggest show so far, and definitely one that, man, like, I think this could be a turning point for MLW and Azteca Underground. Like, this is going to be, you have such a wide range of matches and talent that's going to be there. And again, too, even surprises, you are going to have the wrestling mecca of the world be in this, Dallas area for that weekend. And we already know there's going to be such a big Lucha presence there. Like, you really don't know what to expect.
Well, that's the only thing you can expect is that you just don't just sit on the edge of your seat waiting for the next surprise, because it's going to happen.
Yeah. So make sure you stay tuned to the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. Of course, we are going to keep you updated with each week in MLW Fusion. And of course, as we get more information on Azteca Underground, you're going to hear it straight from us. Up next, we have This Week in Lucha Libre History with Dusty.
That's right. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera for information, birth dates, anniversaries, matches of the day, amazing videos, and even more. And it's all about Lucha Libre at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week, we celebrate the life and the legacy of Perro Aguayo Jr., who passed away 7 years ago on March 21st. When mentioning Perrito, you have to mention Perros del Mal, which was both a faction, but first it was its own promotion. After leaving CMLL in 2007, Perrito started Perros del Mal Productions, which was still at that time affiliated with CMLL, and would book a mix of CMLL stars and luchadors from the indies that operated as a kind of super indie that was friendly with CMLL due to the kind of brand allegiance you have to have in Mexico to book talent from the company. But in 2008, he and CMLL, they had a falling out. So he left for good. He took Mr. Aguila and Damian Seis with him. And in 2010, he became affiliated with AAA, remained there for the rest of his life. The wrestlers within Perros del Mal were some really high-end talent. Daga, Mephisto, even L.A. Park. But the two greatest successes of Perros del Mal with the most international impact were easily Pentagon Jr. and Taya Valkyrie. Perro del Aguayo Jr., he was really the first guy to see both of them and to see that they were going to be future megastars. He was there to kind of help them, guide them through their early careers. He eventually became engaged to Taya, and they became a power couple in Lucha Libre. It was, if you were like a Lucha fan at that time, it was incredible. It was the hottest thing. Perros del Mal, both the promotion and the faction, ended in 2015 following Perrito's death at the young age of only 35 after suffering a cervical spine trauma during a match. His impact will be forever felt in the world championships and continued international attention that Taya and Pentagon receive. There would be no Wera Loca without Perro Aguayo Jr. There would not be a Penta as we know him. After his death, they continued the Perros del Mal name in his honor. 2017, when Penta, Daga, and Angel Garza left AAA, they debuted in the Crash as Perros del Mal. Eventually, they became La Rebellion with the additions of Rey Fenix and Rey Mysterio, and that was kind of the end of Perros del Mal. Brendan, what are some of your thoughts or memories about Perro Aguayo Jr. and Perros del Mal?
Well, like you said, Pentagon would not be, he was certainly talented, but he became popular when he joined that faction.
Yeah, like, he was like a cool guy, but he wasn't the guy. He was just a guy. And without Perros, I don't necessarily, I'm not even necessary. Without Perros, he would not have got Lucha Underground. That's what gave him his swag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a very cool guy, but he was just kind of comfortable in the mid slot. He's very much in like your Aramis spot right now, where he could break out at any time, but he's just kind of there in the middle card, and we all know he's talented. We're just waiting, and that was kind of where Penta was before he joined Perros del Mal. And man, yeah, just took off from there. I want to point out that Perros del Mal is still influential to this day. Like I cannot find a luchador who does not have some many of them when they see me wearing Perros merchandise at shows will show me a tattoo. Like
that's so cool. Yeah.
Right?
It's like Kiss for luchador fans. Old rock and roll guys all have a Kiss t-shirt or a Kiss tattoo or whatever, but lucha guys, we all have Perros del Mal.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong on this, because you follow this more closely than I do. I believe they're also a faction in Japan right now that's honoring the Perros.
I believe there is. I'm not sure who it is, but there is a Perros del Mal faction right now in Japan.
So that was kind of where I wanted to point out just the massive amount of coolness. They're kind of like the NWO.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Because I know there's been so much talk about it this week, but for American fans trying to visualize what Perros del Mal was about or what they look like, imagine the NWO. That's very much the closest relation.
Yeah, keep going with your thoughts there, Miranda. I hit my
No. That's really I just had to chime in on that because we were on the same wavelength at the exact same time with that, which is very trippy. But it was just that, and that was really honestly what was going to be my point. Making bad look good. And really too, when you think about some of the more American names in this, like a Teddy Hart, but more specifically Taya, I feel like
Taya was really the greatest success of Perro.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like I would say that it was, granted of all the members there, and you talked about, Pentagon getting some more of an identity. I think the same thing happened with Taya from Perros del Mal.
Oh, absolutely.
That's when she became La Güera Loca. That match where she had the blood all over.
Yes.
Yeah, that was her ascension.
Yeah, and even to this day they have this still strong bond, together in association. And, that's to see, I think this faction did that in so many ways. It helped elevate people in the moment to bigger than who they were before in one capacity or another. And again, there's different success stories, but I think, one of the biggest ones for me was really Taya. And for a woman to get elevated from this faction and in general in Lucha Libre through is somewhat rare from what I understand, like she really she soared above just not only being a woman's wrestler, but just being a top star, period.
Absolutely.
And you saw a lot more, just personality and craziness, in the very simple term of it, because it was a faction too that embraced chaos, embraced madness, embraced all of the good things that we love about being bad.
Yeah, that's a great way to phrase it.
Yeah, so I do want to bring it back because this is about Perro as well. Like, so he himself was a huge influence on wrestlers. He created this faction and he really drove it for sure. So I was very curious I was excited that it lasted as long as it did, but without him to keep the momentum, it made sense that it changed, it morphed into La Rebellion. But, we would be remiss if we didn't mention all of the impact he had. He was rock star levels of popular.
Oh yeah, he was huge, yeah.
And
I mean, he was the guy at one time, so cool.
And he had big boots to fill because his dad was one of the most popular wrestlers in Mexico in his time. And I would argue that he was more popular than his dad at the height of his popularity. So
I would agree.
That's fair. Yeah. That's definitely
I think
fair.
That's very fair.
Yeah.
So the legacy that he leaves is more than just Perros del Mal. It's the impact and the space that he brought for people to be lucha libre stars in the modern world. Like, he was one of those ones that really bridged the gap between his father's generation and the generation we've got now. Like, he made the Pentagons and the Tayas that we're watching now, but he also was the guy that created the space for them to fill in, which is a huge, huge contribution to the world of lucha.
Well, and he's still, his impact and the Perros impact is still a huge deal. At Raya de Reyes, when Taya came out, they had her come out with Penta, to put them back together. And so it was, everything to a certain group of luchadors, nothing they do will be seen as not being, those guys were in Perros del Mal. Taya was engaged to Perito. The whole thing, it's all part of his thing. And there would be no lucha as we know it right now without Perro. Like, his value and importance cannot be understated.
Well, thank you for this week in Lucha Libre history, Dusty. Don't forget you can check out this day in Lucha Libre at luchacentral.com. But wait, you know what I'm going to say. There's more.
Oh, boy.
Brendan, can you let us know what else our listeners can find on luchacentral.com?
All right, let's do this one more time. If you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it's really, really time to do it. Luchacentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. You can find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. a place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And here we go. This is always the biggest selling point for me. It's free. luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Thank you, Brendan. Brendan, while you're hanging around here, would you mind going in and telling us this week's CMLL news?
Well, so they once again had a tournament. CMLL seems to be focused on bringing back belts, maybe elevating some of the wrestlers to do it. So they had, I want to make sure I get the name on this right. They had the super lightweight title, I believe is what it is called. They had a tournament for that. That featured Halcon Soriano Jr., Adrenaline, Suicida, Inquisitor, Stigma, the Jalisco version of Fantastico, Electrico, Astrano, and I believe that's everybody. Anyway, so you had a tournament featuring all of them. You had the traditional kind of CMLL tournament where they have the over the top battle royal, which announces the creates the pairings. Everybody wrestled off. And you had, so a lot of these names are kind of new to people. So, I'm gonna just jump to the main event here, the main part of it. You had Stigma beat Suicida for the finals to become the new champion. This was a previously vacated title. You had, they're all very short matches, as Cubs fan will point out. So it was actually easy for me to find highlights online, which were the vast majority of the matches. And these are really promising young guys, so you had some good matches. Definitely go check it out. They did have an actual big draw main event after the finals of that, which featured Star Jr., Titan Volador Jr. against Jumilio Diablos 1 and 2 and Sagrado. The Technicos, Star Jr., Titan, and Volador did take that, and it falls 1 and 3, so it was a traditional 3-fall match. Great stuff. The CMLL is really coming back alive with stuff that is very interesting to watch. Now they just need to make it easier for us Americans to get, because these pay-per-views are killing me. With no video on demand.
Yeah. Well, especially the nights they air. With no video on demand, it's hard to think they're making a ton of money.
Well, I mean, there's a crowd in Mexico that will pay for it, but I don't think they're thinking at all about an international audience. I think they're just thinking about Mexico, and it probably does okay in Mexico on those nights, but with video on demand, they can actually do better. I just don't understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, that was the quick and dirty CMLL. Once again, I'm always gonna point out, do you want more CMLL? If you guys want it, let me know. There's plenty of CMLL action. They're running 3 times a week minimum, so I can get you lots more results if that's what you want. If you want less, let me know that too, although I can't do much less than I'm doing right now. So have yourself anyway, that's the show.
No, not a problem. Thank you, Brendan. Up next, we're going to hit this week in WWE with Dusty.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot going on in WWE this week, but we did have the Mysterios defeating the Hurt Business on Raw. Since Rey Mysterio's here in the match, we have Miz and Logan Paul on commentary to build up their WrestleMania match, and to make sure they look like they had a fighting chance at WrestleMania. Rey and Dominik got the win over Shelton and Cedric this week after Dominik did the Eddie dance on the top rope and hit the frog splash for the win, following a really sweet double 619. This is the Dominik we've been asking for. He finally looks like he's comfortable in the ring. He's showing a ton of personality. The Eddie dance, like, such a cool thing to throw back to. He's kind of made it his own thing. I really like that. Very excited for a big win for them. I feel like it could go either way at WrestleMania at this point. Probably Logan Paul and Miz win, but who knows? There's a chance the Mysterios could win, and that's the kind of the magic of it all. And they are really doing a lot to make Dominik look strong, make him look cool, which is awesome. That's the Dominik we've been waiting for. And to kind of tie into that, now we have Miranda with NXT.
Or maybe we just need to stall for a second longer.
Yeah.
Or is it me?
Oh no, here we go.
Miranda was yelling at the dogs again, wasn't she?
I was saying that I was so excited for this week's NXT because we have another, finally, in this week's Lucha Libre news, something that I'm fairly certain we fantasy booked on the show. I know we've discussed this before.
Yes.
NXT 2.0, you came through. So we're going to, in a big way. And it's actually going to tie in a lot to what you were saying earlier, Dusty. So first off, I mentioned it last week. We did get our first North American Championship qualifying match, with the winner being added to the 5-man ladder match at Stand and Deliver. We had Cameron Grimes versus Santos Escobar. I thought they had great chemistry in the ring. Like, this was a match that took me a little bit by surprise because we haven't seen them in the ring before, but really great chemistry. Grimes, relied on his comedy, a little, but not too much. And they had such a great back and forth, even in some of the near falls. Like, I just felt like it was a little bit of the NXT of old when it came to the quality of match. But also, maybe surprised or not surprised, the crowd was behind Santos Escobar. Like, they were clearly in his corner. And Santos showed some cockiness, kind of mocking Cameron Grimes. But this match ended up being influenced, of course, by a bit, and by Legado del Fantasma, creating the opportunities with the distractions that allowed for Santos Escobar to get some openings. In the end, Cameron Grimes was going for his maneuver, the cave-in. However, Santos was able to turn it around for the Phantom Driver for the win. So Santos Escobar will now be in that ladder match for the North American Championship. Very, very exciting. It really could have gone either way. I straight up thought Santos wasn't going to win, but he has. Everything's good in the world. That leads to what we had in the other half of the night. This is the exciting part, you guys. In the back, we had Legado del Fantasma cutting a promo, Santos stating that he is the greatest luchador of all time. And then who walks in but the actual greatest luchador of all time, Rey Mysterio and Dominik Mysterio coming in. Of course, Santos extends the hand of welcome to Rey Mysterio. And of course, Legado del Fantasma putting Santos over as the greatest luchador of all time. And Rey saying, well, if anyone's going to be the greatest luchador of all time, it's actually going to be my son, Dominik. And that got Legado del Fantasma.
Whoa.
Look. Look, the point is, right now, hey, Rey putting over Dominik, if anyone's going to be beating records, he said it was going to be Dominik. I'm just reporting the news, that's all.
I know. I had an instant reaction to that news.
Right. Fair enough. So with that got Legado riled up, that got Dominik riled up, and then we get the challenge, Raul Mendoza versus Dominik Mysterio later that night. Then we get to the match. So absolutely to Dusty's point, Dominik looked so comfortable in the ring, and he got one of the best responses all night in NXT 2.0.
They were so excited for Dominik, and he ate it up. I mean, he played to the crowd perfectly.
Yeah, and so that definitely leads to a question of, should Dominik be in NXT 2.0? Is that a better landing place for him now than Raw? Signs kind of point to yes. You know, with having a great crowd reaction, a better environment to get more comfortable, different people to wrestle against, having more singles matches there, like, kind of signs point to, should he be in NXT 2.0? I
think so. Yeah. Like, the crowd loved him. NXT is allegedly still kind of building stars for the main roster. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things Dominik did. Rey Mysterio had the stroke where Dominik sidestepped NXT and sidestepped all the traditional things that you're supposed to do. He's not at least in WWE. Mm-hmm. He's not a performance center trainee. He trained at Santino Brothers. I mean, he had real lucha training. But to work the WWE style, sometimes you need a little bit of that WWE training. And to have some of those guys like Shawn Michaels in the back that could work with him and kind of show him what's up. I mean, you talk about charisma in the ring, Shawn Michaels, and he could kind of help Dominik harness that. He's got it. Like, you can see it. And I've mentioned it in the WWE. As soon as he started doing the Eddie dance, all of a sudden he found himself. Yeah. Like, that was like the key to his thing. And he just feels comfortable now. Not only is he luchador, he can go with anybody because of his size. Rey Mysterio didn't look as legitimate against some of the big guys. But Dominik is big enough, he can go toe-to-toe with anybody. And so to put him in NXT and kind of give him that WWE training is only of benefit to Dominik at this point.
And he had a very entertaining match with Raul Mendoza, not too long, but even not too short for TV. Of course, you had this distraction on the outside with Legado de Fantasma, but that was kind of evened out by the team of Josh Briggs, Brooks Jensen, and Fallon Henley, which it looks like Fallon Henley and Elektra Lopez are going to be going into a feud next. But that created enough of a distraction for Dominik to get the 619 and the frog splash. And again, the crowd ate it up. I mean, if it wasn't on the road to WrestleMania, I'd be thinking, are we going to get a Legado versus Mysterio's feud? And as you pointed out, Dusty, this could be a way to build and elevate Dominik and Rey on the road to WrestleMania. But also, I mean, if we get the teaser for Rey versus Santos.
Yes, that's the real payoff in all
this. Yes, like, no, can we please, can you please? I mean, come on.
Me once, I'm not falling for it again.
Oh man, I mean, this has been several other, Raw and SmackDown stars have made the jump to NXT 2.0, which has been great. This is, I think, one of the better examples of it. And not to say the examples haven't been good, but like, this really could be something.
Yeah.
Well, they wholeheartedly illustrated that the door goes both ways now. Mm-hmm. And that to the points you were both making, I think that just is better for Dom all the way around. He gets that time to grow under that brand. He's not necessarily having to worry about the weird network expectations that Fox has on SmackDown. Like, he can do stuff. He can be a star, become a better star there, and he can still work with guys that are on that SmackDown roster and bring that back up to the main roster performance with him. So, yeah.
And, we'll just see. Maybe, the reaction may help incline WWE to say, hey,
right?
Maybe Dominik should be spending some more time in NXT 2.0 to exactly that, hone in a little bit more of what they are building for Raw and SmackDown. And not to say there'd be a long time, but I think that, again, having more versatility, not necessarily relying on having to be in a tag match with his dad, coming up against up and coming talent that could, match a little bit more of his youth, like, I would say with the direction that NXT 2.0 is going in, maybe it's a better fit for Dominik right now. You know, I know they have obligations as they head into WrestleMania, but maybe after WrestleMania, you know, Dominik could easily have a great feud. Maybe it is with Santos and that is his feud. Okay, that's, you know, let that roll, you know, or maybe it's someone else within NXT, and I think that would be just as entertaining, and it could really help Dominik just develop a little bit more of that sports entertainment aspect, as well as his in-ring performance, to the level that they're already training others in too, you know? So I don't think it does anything to put him in NXT. But again, I mean, just that visual there had, you know, with Legado del Fantasma and the Mysterios, was the biggest what if of, you know, we've had in quite some time with WWE, and especially NXT. Like, that is how, as you even talked about, Dusty, the door goes both ways. Maybe their version of what the Forbidden Door, quote unquote, could look like, you know, these types of just dream matches with, you know, Ray and Santos, even on just an episode of NXT, you know, one of the bigger episodes of NXT could absolutely main event a show, you know, like
Halloween Havoc.
I'm gonna
stop
throw
it.
Something
Stop it.
No, stop it. You're a jerk. You're a jerk for putting that out there and now making me wish that and never getting it. You're a jerk. How dare you do that? Such a jerk.
It's the perfect setting, though. Genuinely.
Exactly. It's so perfect. You know they're never going to do it.
Gotta subvert fan expectations there.
Damn it.
Well, and the thing is, too, in comparison to Raw, where there's a lot going on, they have their own main event. On NXT 2.0, it's easy to treat Ray and Dominik as a very big deal. And when you treat them as a very big deal, people believe they're a very big deal. And that was part of the excitement as well for me this week. I mean, they just made them feel like a big deal for the first time in a long time. And made Dominik feel like a big deal. And before, he was a little green in the ring. Sometimes when he'd get the chance to showcase things, you wouldn't see what you wanted to see. But this week, we saw what we wanted to see. So I like Miranda said, I hope this is something that develops. I hope we see more of this. And I hope we see a lot more between the Mysterios and Legado del Fantasma. This has kind of been what we wanted all along.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, us on this show.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, this
well, that's who matters.
This is the
audience
trio
that it should go for. And I think that's also an interesting utilization of NXT. I mean, WWE is a variety show. You know, this, and we have much talked about representation of Latinos on WWE television. I mean, heck, when we had Legado versus Lucha House Party, that had, you know, a lot more potential. They had some great matches, but it felt very serious too, you know? And I think NXT really is that place where you can really get more of that crossover appeal. But, you know, Legado del Fantasma is still a big deal faction, really one of the best factions that they have in all of WWE still, for now. You know,
that's our opinion. They don't seem to agree with us.
Well, this is why we have a show they don't, you know. If they wanted to have a show to complain about our show, go ahead, WWE, go ahead. Have a podcast that talks about why our opinions are wrong. But this is our show. And we're going to say why our opinions are right and theirs is wrong.
It always, because we have great ideas on here. They just don't ever seem to agree with us. Well, I shouldn't say ever. There have been a couple times that one of us has been spot on with what they do, but
yes. But either way, a really great week in NXT 2.0 for Legado del Fantasma. You can check out clips on YouTube as well on WWE's YouTube page, Hulu as well for this, both the Santos Escobar and Cameron Grimes match, as well as the Raul Mendoza Dominik Mysterio match and promo. All great things. Check it out on this week's NXT. And with that, we have made it to the end of another episode of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. Yay! Go ahead and check out luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. Don't forget to check out Lucha Central on social media at Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at luchacentralcom on Twitter. Of course, you can check out Lucha Central's YouTube page. That includes the archives of this show, as well as the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast in Espanol, as well as exclusive interviews and matches that you're not going to see anywhere else. While you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy, and I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, I am 321 T-shirt guy. That's the numbers 321, and T-shirt guy is all spelled out. I am on Instagram, I am on Facebook, and I'm all over the Twitters.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me at the #Miranda, hashtag spelled out, on Instagram and Facebook. And, well, while you're at it, if you're listening to this show on your favorite podcast streaming platform like Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, and more, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review. Go ahead and subscribe so that way you get a notification every time a new episode of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast drops. You can leave us a 5-star rating, and you can also leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts on the show, things that we should cover, things we shouldn't cover, things you agree with, maybe things you don't agree with. Either way, go ahead and let us know, either through social media or through the reviews. Make sure you keep staying tuned to the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast as we head into the spring and summer. You know we're going to have lots more to share with you. So stay tuned each and every week. For Dusty Murphy and Brendan Barr, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you all so much, and we will be with you all next week.
Lucharán a 2 de 3 caídas sin límite de tiempo. En esta esquina,